Hello, and welcome back to DJ's podcast. Today, I am excited to talk about a very important topic that I had the opportunity to chance on the internet. And in today, we would be privileged or have the opportunity to talk about Matthew Hussey's 4 levels of relationship. I must be thrilled because he is a New York Times bestseller author and has been invited to talk about his theory of importance as far as relationship is concerned. And today with me, I'm very excited that I have Angel with me once again. And so those of you that are familiar with Angel, in the previous episode, we discussed a lot of things last week in the previous episode. But for today, please bear with me and stay with me as we discussed the 4 levels of relationship. So, we'll come back. In today's episode, I am so happy to discuss about Matthew Hussey's 4 levels of importance. And the reason why this is very important is because he believes that a person must understand the level in which he places in a relationship. And so, by knowing the level of importance that you place in a certain types of relationship, you will be able to weigh the pros and cons and decide whether you would like to go further in that hierarchy. Before I discuss the 4 levels of importance with Angel, I would ask Angel, what is so interesting about my podcast that makes you always want to come? Because it looks like anytime I get to call you, you are ready and you are going to come. Why? What did you find interesting about my podcast?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. I think your podcast is very unique, and there's a lot of podcasts out there that, say a lot of things, right? But I think what's interesting about your podcast, and I think it's pretty cool, it's the relationships out there, they're changing, they're, I guess in a way, evolving in many different ways. And I think learning and helping people, from my experiences, I feel like that's very important, right? And I feel like you're in a good place with your podcast to do that, to share your stories, to share your experiences, to share your pain in some ways, right? Yeah. But I think it's a really good idea for a podcast to talk about relationships, from different topics that could help people navigating many aspects of their lives. Yeah. So thank you for having me.
And thank you. You seem like you are my go-to person.
Yeah.
If nobody is not coming to my show, you are coming. And I'm so happy that I always have you coming on my podcast. So let's go on to today's discussion. Matthew Hussey is a New York Times best-selling author. And he came up with 4 levels of importance in a relationship. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
What are they?
Yeah, so before, he believes that before you move on in any form of importance in your relationship, you should have some stages that you belong to as far as discussing these forms of relationships. So he said in the first stage, you must have an admiration for someone. He also talked about you move on from admiration to mutual attraction. That's what brings people together. That's what now it becomes what is called 2 people connecting on the initial stage. The third one is commitment.
Okay.
And we see now a lot of issues regarding commitment. People don't want commitment. People want to be in open relationship and things like that. Yeah. And then he said the final stage, even before you decide to marry, which is the final level, is compatibility. You need to know whether both of you are compatible. And so I am so happy to discuss about this. Every stage, the risk involved and all that. Yes. And so the first question I'm going to ask you, he believes that admiration is first, just as I said, right?
Yeah.
What makes somebody admire somebody? Do you think it's relevant for admiration to be the first stage in relationship?
I think his terms of of a relationship, whether it'll be a long term or a short one, I think those are very good terms, right?
Yeah.
He starts with admiration.
Yeah.
I think that's a good concept, right? Because I think when you admire someone, it's because of their qualities.
Yeah.
Whether that be honesty, humor, right? Whatever characteristics they bring or you find interesting,
Yeah.
you admire that person.
Yeah.
Whether that be beauty too,
Yeah.
their strength, their anything they do, right? You admire
Yeah.
that. So. And it's interesting that he starts with that because for me, I think it will be mutual attraction first.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of philosophies that go into that, but I think when you are attracted to someone, that's what makes you approach to them. Like,
Okay.
hey, can I buy you a drink or something like that?
Yeah.
So mutual attraction, it's what I feel like people usually start with, and then you get to know that person. You move on to compatibility, which
Yeah. Yeah.
last, right? And I think he meant it's a very interesting point that you bring up that before marriage you want to make sure you are compatible.
Yeah.
I feel like that should start before the relationship should start because if you're not compatible even before the relationship starts, you're gonna have issues, right? And I think you mentioned it very well. There's a lot of commitment issues nowadays, whether that be open relationships, long distance relationships. I know we were talking about that. So I feel like for me, you have to learn if you're compatible even before that. Even
And I'm gonna ask you this.
yeah.
If you see somebody that, let's just say a woman is passing, right?
Okay.
You must have seen something that interests you.
Okay.
You admire the person's physique or something like that.
I think it's interesting the way you're phrasing admiration because for me, admiration is something you find when you know that person.
Yeah.
I think what you're mentioning is attractiveness,
Okay.
whether that be beauty, like you're saying, or in your case. But I think it could attractiveness could be from honesty, from
Yeah.
humor, to characteristics from like long hair, their skin or their eyes. So if a woman passes by, I see her, and I'm attracted to her certain things, like her eyes, her hair, or her skin, or how beautiful she is, then I think that's the usually the first start of
Okay.
attractiveness. You like that person is beautiful, that person
Yeah.
is handsome, so you're attracted, right?
Okay.
And then I think it's what leads into admiration because you get to know that person and you
Yeah.
admire more that person, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. He says that to for a person to move from admiration to mutual attraction, he must see that those things that he admires in a person must be genuine.
Must be genuine.
Must be genuine. And so you made mention of honesty as one of them. And so, how do you detect whether this is a genuine intention, genuine admiration,
Yeah.
and not just going to be like a manipulation or something like that?
Oh yeah, I think nowadays it's very very hard to tell when someone is genuine, like when someone is actually being honest. Because a lot of people could tell you lies, could tell you this and that, and it sucks to being lied to, right? But I feel like if a person really is honest with you, then you're gonna know, right? If not, then really, what's the point in talking to that person,
Okay.
right? And going back to the question, how can you tell if that person is genuine? It's really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be honest. It's really hard because you don't know what the person is trying to do or what the person is trying to say or anything like that. So I think you just have to trust the person. Right?
So he believes that in admiring people, it's just the initial stage of relationship. You have not even made any attempt to talk to the person or even get to know the person better. It's just an initial stage.
Okay.
And so for mutual connection, that's when he sees that, okay, Now I admire something about you. I admire your face. I admire your courtesy. I admire your hospitality, and I feel like you're going to be a very good person for me. These are all wild thoughts, right? But now, for mutual connection, then you are seeing that okay, we both should agree on some principles that will make us connect at that level. How do you combine these things?
With mutual connection.
Yes.
I think it's. I mean, I want to point out this big difference because mutual connection could also mean as a friend.
Yeah.
For example, we have a mutual connection about loving podcasts. That's and I think that's what makes us really good friends, right? But also other certain things. But what's interesting is that I think there's a big difference as to what your intention is. If you want to make friends, then yeah, mutual connections are pretty useful. If you want to have like a serious relationship, you want to have mutual connections that are really honest with each other. For example, me and my partner, we love talking about having a family. When we started dating, we were serious about that. We were honest with each other, and we connected on that. We connected on having a family, kids, the struggles of kids, right? But honestly, it's something you build on that. You go from there, and I think it's a big difference when you try to have friends with a serious relationship.
Yeah. Okay. What is the risk involved? Do you see any risk in that, in mutual connection? Have you ever met any person and you felt like, come on, this guy, he seemed quite off. There's something off about him. And I think it goes even into relationship and dating issues.
Yeah. I think there's some risk when it comes to mutual connections because sometimes, like I said, mutual connections can be good. Like we could have mutual connections with almost anything we say, but in reality, sometimes going to the previous episode, we talked about red flags.
Yes.
Just because we have mutual connections doesn't mean we're perfect. We're just building on our things that we are similar. For example, this is not true, but if, for example, like I said, me and my girlfriend love the idea of having kids. But what if I was a bad person? What if I lied? What if I cheated? And then that's a red flag. And then there's some risk on her in going out with a person like me. So there's a risk. There's a big risk when it comes to even building mutual connections. So, and going to the previous question of how do you know if a person is being honest and genuine, it's really hard. That's how you build trust, honestly. That's how you build a trust in a person is trusting what that person is true and taking it from there. Building that trust step by step. Right.
And adding on to that, I believe that isn't it the case where you see somebody liking whatever thing you like doing also? If some people love going on skating or going on the golf park or doing some sports together or staying indoors, that contributes to building that form of connection. Because if you don't see eye to eye with some of these issues, it's not going to work between both of you.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, like you're saying, like building on things like you like to do hobbies. If you have a person that you find attractive, and that person is like also doing the stuff you like, then we're building a connection. But what's funny, I also think this is funny because I've seen this before. Also, building a connection on things you hate, which is pretty funny nowadays because a lot of people hate a lot of things now. And a lot of people build connections on that, not just with friendship, but in a serious relationship. People, for some reason, build relationships on protesting, on guns, not anything, not to get political, but on things that they hate. And it's funny to see that because, usually people build connections on things they love or they find fun or anything like that. But, it's something to see nowadays,
Angel, I must admit that I'm actually enjoying this.
Me too, yeah.
And guests and viewers, please, if you are following us or if you are enjoying the discussion, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And after we come back, we will discuss the other 2 levels of relationship. See you next. Viewers, welcome back. Now, Angel, let's talk about commitment. But before that, I want to ask you, at what level do you believe that somebody should want to commit? After seeing a person, desiring things about the person, building connection, and you mentioned that honesty and seeing genuineness in some of these things are what will actually help you in the first two stages of relationship. So the third one is commitment. How and when do you decide that this time around I'm going to commit?
Yeah, I think commitment is a really good, really good question to ask because I think nowadays, like we were talking earlier, it's really hard to see that. Yes, relationships. There's a lot of relationships out there. People say, "Oh, I have a girlfriend. Oh, I have a boyfriend."
Yeah.
That's great. But just because you say that, sometimes it doesn't make you feel like you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
What really makes you in a relationship, it's your commitment. It's what makes you like put the effort in a relationship.
I know in situations where people build some form of connection, at some point the other party felt like, okay, I feel like I need to commit, but the person went ahead to say, hey, can we be girlfriends? Can we marry? And the person was like, no, I thought we were having fun.
Yeah.
That is going to be hurting.
Oh yeah, it hurts. I'm gonna be honest. In my first relationship, we built a really good connection with her, where we talked about having fun and games and cooking and everything like that. So I was genuinely I liked her, and I liked her personality and everything. And I asked her, do you want to commit to a relationship? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. And then a few months, like I think it was a month or two that passed, she ghosted me, and I found out she cheated on me. So it hurt knowing that you committed to a relationship, and then they break up with you. So
that's not
even commitment. That's just like lying to yourself, to be honest. And you have to be honest with yourself. What are you committing to? Are you really committing into just having fun with and breaking someone's feelings, or are you really commitment into a person and making that effort to make that person happy? And when I proposed to my girlfriend, man, it just felt right because I knew. And reality is in life, there's always going to be struggles. There's always going to be setbacks and challenges. But when I committed to my girlfriend, I knew I loved her. I knew the day I met her, I was going to love her. And
wait, are you saying that before you commit, you yourself would feel that is the right thing to do? Did you?
Oh yeah, I knew when I met her, like, oh, she's the one. Oh. She's the one. I was like, because I'm putting the effort, I'm gonna put the effort into making this something real. And when I met her, I was like, I'm shocked to see how amazing she is and everything, right? And as the relationship built, I knew my commitment grew even more. Like, this is what I wanted.
Is it a case where you feel like it's mutual?
Yeah, sometimes it is. Yeah, because she was also putting the effort, I think, and like I said in the previous episode, sometimes I feel like we mentioned 50-50 relationships. Sometimes one person in the relationship puts a little bit more effort. And I feel like in this case it's probably me because I'm more of a romantic.
Maybe.
But I would say that sometimes she makes more of an effort, So yeah, I think commitment, to your audience, to your fans, you have to ask yourself, what are you really committing to? And are you really putting the effort in your relationship?
And I think it also comes back to having to talk about some of the hard things. You know what? Some things are so hard to talk about. Hard to talk about because the other person feels like, okay, going to talk about 50-50, I am of the view that we have to do 50-50, but the other person don't believe in that. It's going to cause a breakup or destroy the initial relationship or things like that. And so some of the conversation that is hard to discuss, and talking about some of the conversation that is hard to discuss, you have to be intentional about talking about these things. You have to, at every stage, you would have to assess whether that's a reverse situation, that's a reciprocal situation.
That is true.
Because if I am thinking of committing, but in the long run, the other partner doesn't think of that, that is going to be a waste of time.
Yeah, I think you're making a really good point where not only do you have to build like mutual connections and
Yeah.
on that, but you have to be really honest and talk about everything. And I know what I'll say this with my relation with my current girlfriend, with my fiance, we talked about everything, and I mean everything, like from what we like to kids to family to
Yeah.
everything, and we were honest with each other. I talked about my pain, I talked about my struggles growing up. She talked about her struggles too, and that's what made me commit even more because she was genuinely honest, and there was no point in lying. Like she could have told me lies, and that's fine, and I would have known. But the fact that she was honest with me, the fact that she was open her heart and her emotions, her pain, everything,
Yeah.
that's what made me even fall in love with her because she
Yeah.
was genuinely honest, and
Yeah.
that's where you know you want to commit. And
Yeah.
that this person is honest, this person is who she is or
Yeah.
who he is, right? And that's why you build
Yeah.
a commitment.
Let's talk about compatibility.
Yeah.
How do you build compatibility?
Ooh, that's a really good
How does it mean to you in a relationship?
compatibility. Ooh, that's a hard one because sometimes, like I said, you build mutual interests, mutual connections, right? And I feel for me, compatibility should be at the beginning of a relationship, even before a relationship starts.
Okay.
Because sometimes, and people say this is really funny, opposites attract each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be rude or anything.
They do generally.
Sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I mean, people say, oh, opposites attract each other. You're going to find your opposite. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is not true. People will find a person that they like or find attractive.
Yeah.
And honestly, they're going to be compatible if they have similar things to do. With my fiance, she loves kids. I love kids. She loves to rest, to sleep, and I love that. And because I sometimes I don't have time for that, and when I'm with her, I feel like I can do that more. So that's amazing. And sometimes there's things where we don't agree with.
Yeah.
But honestly, even then, I'm like, I'm taking her side. Like my fiance is like never wrong, so I'm like, it's my fault, right? But
I'm gonna tell you this. I would say that most of the common relationship that I've seen, especially in Ghana, it's a nurse marrying a teacher. You know why?
Why?
Do you see that in a situation, a doctor and a banker, both of them spending a lot of time at the bank or in the office, not having time for each other, is compatible? Do you see that?
I mean, it just depends. I think you're talking about Ghana, which is different, right?
Yeah.
And I think here, in the valley where we are in Texas overall, people build a connection and compatibility with someone they not only are they attracted to, but what they want in life. If your thing is to build a career with someone, and then you're gonna go with someone that's gonna build a career, right?
Yeah.
If you want to start a family, in my case, then you're gonna go with someone that wants to have a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think that the kind of job your partner does is really a key.
Oh yeah, big time.
If I spend most of my time doing my work and not spending time with you, how is that gonna work? It's not gonna work.
No,
I don't
no.
see that.
Yeah.
And so these are some of the things you would like to assess
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Yeah, I think that's what I even say before even a relationship starts. You want to know what that person is doing, what they like, what they do, to even know if you're compatible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so glad that we are having this conversation. And so I'm going to read something here. So according to Matthew Hussey, he says why these levels are important is that many people get stuck at the mutual attraction stage, and that love isn't enough. He also says that striving for perfection in a relationship can keep people from experiencing the magic of real relationship.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I would agree with that. That sometimes people are just stuck in, I'm gonna be honest, in sex and sexuality, and and I'm not saying that's wrong, right? Because sex is great, right? It's a human thing, but people are just stuck in that. It's sad to see that sex has become like like a sad thing to see nowadays
Yeah.
because people are just really looking for that. They're not
Yeah.
really building a relationship.
Yeah.
And going from what he says, building that compatibility with someone, it's what makes a relationship great.
Thank you
And
so much.
yeah.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so viewers, according to Matt Hussey, that is how he classified the level of importance in a relationship. I hope you like it, but if you do like it, you can support me by clicking on the subscribe button and following up on all social media platforms. On TikTok, Instagram, and on Facebook, you're going to see DJ's podcast. Help us grow, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.